Hey everybody, Billboard Chart Guy here, and welcome to the latest episode of BBCG Friends. Happy to all of you. Hope it was a good holiday for everyone. A little different this episode as I sent out a couple of messages on Twitter and requested some listener questions. Thought we'd try something different for this week's episode, so we'll see how this goes. First off, I want to thank everyone who's been listening and, sending very positive messages to me over the course of the last 10 months. This has been fun to do. I've really enjoyed it. Especially want to thank Kirk for the inspiration to start this and Menners for all his support behind the scenes. He's been invaluable to me. So good on you, mate, they say. I also want to thank everybody who's been a guest on the show. It's been fun getting to know some of the Minifans through this vehicle and hope to continue it as we move into 2026. We have guests lined up for the rest of the month of January. So I'm excited about that. Also, shout out to Mama Kay and the Billboard Rewind show that I do with her. We have a new episode coming up on Tuesday the 6th, where we'll be trying to talk about the year 2001. Bit of a struggle for me in terms of what was on the charts that week, but we had a good time doing it. So anyway, thank you to her for allowing me to work with her on that show. So anyway, let's get to these listener questions. Got a few, which I'm grateful for. And, let's start off with Nipples, who generally starts our day on Twitter with a picture of the sunrise or the ocean. So it was appropriate that the first person who sent over a question was Nipples. He asked me, have you had a chance to listen to the Goose version of Atlantic City from Madison Square Garden? So they played the Garden in this past June. Nips, I haven't had a chance to listen to that. I did listen to a version of Atlantic City by them from Radio City Music Hall in 2022 and just absolutely loved it. Very quiet, kind of an unplugged version for them. Really, really enjoyable. And they're a band who I continue to dip my toe into more and more. And I need to see them. Hopefully this will be the year that I'll get around to doing it. But I love what they're doing, keeping the jam band spirit alive with a 21st century twist. So, at least the version I heard from Radio City Music Hall from 2022 was incredible. I need to find the SG version. Thank you for the question. I've got a couple from Bussy Borman. Longtime friend of BBCG and Friends. Her first question is, she asked, you have mentioned that you played trumpet in your youth. Was that the only instrument you played? Do you still play? And if not, when did you stop? Well, I started playing trumpet in 4th grade, and I played through high school. Played in the regular band, and also we had a jazz band or stage band, I think we called it. That was fun. I did not play any other instruments. I've tried to dabble with a guitar, and I just can't get my fingers to work. So that guitar sadly sits in the back of my closet. I don't play trumpets to this day. I probably stopped right after high school, but I do have a funny story. In 2007, I was only up here in New Hampshire for about 3 or 4 years at that point. And as all of you football fans know, the Patriots were ruling the world at that moment. And of course, being a Jets fan, I took a significant amount of heat from us, you Patriot fans. Anyway, the 2007 season was when the Patriots were undefeated going into the Super Bowl. And of course, they played the Giants. So I switched my New York Alliance from green to blue, and I became the biggest Giants fan for 2 weeks that year. And of course, we all know that the Giants beat the Patriots uh, in that Super Bowl and then in 2011. But the day after the 2007 Super Bowl, I brought my trumpet into my office and I walked around the entire building playing taps over and over and over again. Payback is a bitch. They broke my chops for many years about the Patriots and the Jets, so I had every right to torture them for about 15 minutes that Monday morning with a nonstop rendition of taps. So that was the last time I played my trumpet. The things that amuse us, right? Melissa also asked, what artist do you wish you could have seen live but didn't? So there's a bunch, but I narrowed down to three that I wish I had seen. First and foremost, there's Jimi Hendrix. When I first discovered him, I just couldn't believe the sounds he was making with his guitar. It was incredible. What stood out to me is he's left-handed, and I'm left-handed, so I had a natural attraction to that. Just thought he was the coolest thing on earth from all those videos I saw, of course, famously playing at Monterey Pop in 67 and then in Woodstock in 69. Just an amazing, amazing talent that we lost too soon. So he is first on my list. Stevie Ray Vaughan is another guitarist who I wish I had seen. I believe he passed in that tragic helicopter accident in 90 or 91, I think. But hearing Stevie Ray Vaughan was the closest thing that I had heard to Hendrix up at that point. Just amazing. I loved his music. I loved his band. I loved his style, blues based, great songs, did great covers. He's someone I wish I could have seen. And the last person would be Prince. Never had the chance to see him live either. And what stands out to me, two things, obviously his performance at the Super Bowl, when he played Purple Rain in the pouring rain. Probably the greatest, if I'm being fair, the greatest Super Bowl halftime performance. And then, of course, his solo at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame when George Harrison was inducted on While My Guitar Gently Weeps. He just took over that stage that night and performed a solo for the ages. He was an incredible musician. So those are the three I wish I could have seen live, but I didn't. Melissa also asked me, excluding Bruce, who is my favorite E Street member and my least favorite E Street member, and why for both. My favorite is by far the Professor, Roy Bittan, on the piano. Which his music kind of took a different direction, a different tone when Roy joined the band in 74, prior to the Born to Run sessions. So many of his classics, whether it's Backstreets, whether it's Racing in the Street, and there's so many to mention. Incredible. Love Roy. He also played on one of my favorite all-time records, which is Making Movies by Dire Straits, which came out in 1980. And he also played on Bat Out of Hell, by Meatloaf as well. So Roy is significant in the making of some of the great albums of our era. My least favorite, and this is probably not fair, but my least favorite E Street Band member is Nils Lofgren. So when Little Steven left, right before the Born in the USA tour in 1984, he was replaced by Nils Lofgren. Nils had been a solo artist. Nils had played with Neil Young and Crazy Horse, and so he joined the band. In talented, very creative guitarist, but he's my least favorite because he wasn't Little Steven, who I loved. And when the band reunited in '99 for the reunion tour, and to this day, both guitarists are in the band. And yes, Nils does some killer solos, whether it's in "'Twas the Night" or "Youngstown," but for my mind, it's overkill having both in the band. So a little bit of a weak reason why he's my least favorite, but it's basically because he's not Little Steven. Two more from Melissa. She asked who my favorite female artists are. I thought about this for a little bit. Gun to my head, my first name I put down was Chrissie Hynde. I love her work with the Pretenders. One of my favorite bands. I love their first three albums. It hit me right at that age, 15, 16, 17. Love her vocals. Love her attitude on stage. And she's terrific and has always been. A sneaky favorite of mine are the Bangles. I think they're underrated. I think they get a little lost in the shadow of the Go-Go's, although the Bangles were together longer. Suzanne Hoffs, for obvious reasons, has always been one of my favorites. She's a great singer. And I would also point you guys to, she did 3 albums with Matthew Sweet. They're called Under the Covers, and where Susanna Hoffs and Matthew Sweet do covers of classic songs. Really, if you're into covers, it's a nice. They're nice collections to listen to. Third one is Carole King, and tip of the cap actually to my older sister, who introduced me to Carole King via Tapestry, which is a classic album that you need to know about. Every song is just incredible, and Carole King wrote so many great songs in the 60s with her husband, and then went solo and is rightly in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So I guess those would be the 3 favorite female artists that I have. Melissa's last question, and another Bruce question, which I love, is what is your favorite Springsteen authored song that was a hit for an inner artist/band? So when you say the word hit, that narrows it down a bit. I would pick Fire by the Pointer Sisters. That got to number 2 in 1979. Love the way they do that song. Very, the groove is incredible, and they were great. So that got to number 2 in '79. The first cover of the song Fire was done by Robert Gordon in 1978. Didn't hit the charts. What's notable about it is Bruce played piano on the recording of Fire by Robert Gordon. Just an FYI for you. Now, when you say, you said hit, Melissa, so if I was to tell you what my favorite cover is, you probably know based on our conversations and what I've posted on Twitter, it's Atlantic City by the band. Love it. Just changes that song, the feel of that song. and makes it their own. Thank you for all those questions, though, Melissa. Really appreciate it. And Darren Cunningham threw me a couple of questions here. Question one: did you ever see the Traveling Wilburys? I love the Traveling Wilburys. I love the two albums. I never did, and I don't think they ever performed live. I went and tried to research that because I had thought maybe they had done a couple of shows. I didn't see any evidence of that. So if you have other information, please let me know. But the Traveling Wilburys were a supergroup. George Harrison, Tom Petty, Jeff Lynne from Electric Light Orchestra, Bob Dylan, and Roy Orbison. And they released two albums. The first album was released in October of '88. It was such a surprise and such a welcome release. Unfortunately, 2 months later, Roy Orbison passed away, and that slowed down the Wilburys a bit. They got together 2 years later and recorded and released another album with just the four remaining Wilburys, which they ironically called Volume 3, even though it was their second album. And it was a moment in time that they did that. At least from what I read, Darren, they had talked about touring and how could they do it, but just all the other commitments of their careers just didn't allow it to happen. So again, if you have different information, let me know. But I don't believe they've ever toured. Darren's second question is, did I ever see the Notting Hillbillies? So the Notting Hillbillies were a country group put together by Mark Knopfler of Dire Straits, who I mentioned earlier. Mark would absolutely fall into my top 10 guitarists of all time. Just incredible sound and tone. I never saw the Notting Hillbillies. Again, in doing some research for your question, I saw that they only performed once in the United States. They did do a couple of tours, but they exclusively played in England. They did perform on Saturday Night Live in May of 1990. But I couldn't find anything else that they played anywhere else in the States. So no, I did not see the Notting Hillbillies. Final question from Darren. What musical festivals, and he puts in parentheses, like Lollapalooza, have I attended? So I'm not a big festival guy, but in the 90s, I used to love Blues Traveler. I was a jam band guy. And they created what was called the Horde, HORDE Festival. And they started it, and a lot of jam bands of the era, whether it was Spin Doctors or Widespread Panic or Rusted Root. I think I saw Dave Matthews Band at one of the early Horde festivals. Later on, they expanded, and Lenny Kravitz was there. The Black Crowes was there. So this went on for about 6 or 7 years. I saw them at Randall Island in Manhattan, Randall Island, the PNC Arts Center down in Jersey. I saw a Horde festival at Jones Beach in Long Island. That's really the only festival I've ever attended, but I went to this multiple years. And I recently heard an interview with John Popper, and they're actually in the midst of putting together a documentary about the Horde Festival. So I'm really curious to see that, and I'm sure it'll be of great interest to many music fans out there. So that's it. We're doing a mini episode today. I just wanted to change the format and see how this went. Again, I want to thank everybody who's listened and appreciate the feedback and appreciate all the guests who have come on over the last 10 months. It's unbelievable. I've been doing this now. This is my 10th month. So excited to keep going. Like I said, I have guests lined up for all of January. Looking forward. I have a couple of special projects also that I'm looking at putting together for this year, and more to come on those. But thank you again for listening, and I hope you have a great day.